Hello, welcome back to Unsolicited Film Reviews. I'm Zach Miller, he's Martin Cook, and we have a good one in store for you tonight. We're talking about the greatest TV shows of the 21st century thus far. We're already almost a quarter of the way through this century. And we haven't discussed a lot of TV since we launched on YouTube a few months ago, but for long-time listeners, you know that we dive pretty deep into this realm. And despite our name, unsolicited takes don't strictly apply to film. We have a ton to get to tonight, so let's blitz through some industry news.
Yeah.
In the streaming service department, Max is now HBO Max again, which used to be just Max, which used to be HBO Go, which used to be just regular HBO, but now it's HBO Max again.
Makes perfect sense.
Can you imagine like people actually get paid to come up with this?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's definitely some people in offices sitting there working on this all day long. And this is their entire job. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey has tickets available in select markets a whole year in advance of the film's premiere next July, including in Toronto. It's an innovative marketing strategy, I guess, and a good way to build buzz. And people are already scalping these for like $200 a piece.
It's
So
absurd.
it's yeah, it's wild. It's almost like an impending Taylor Swift concert.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is sure. Maybe it's a great idea. It's to help build buzz and everything, which I'm sure would happen anyway with a Christopher Nolan epic. But I mean, I barely know what I'm doing next week, let alone a year from now. I'm certainly not buying tickets this far in advance.
And the nominees for the 77th Emmys were also announced this week. And since we're talking TV anyway, we should address some of the standouts. Any thoughts just pop out
Yeah,
at you?
so I'm obviously very happy that Andor got nominated for Best Drama Series. As everybody knows, that's one of my favorites. I was disappointed it didn't get any acting nominations though. Although when Severance and White Lotus each get three apiece in supporting actor category and another five between them in supporting actress, it really doesn't leave much room for anyone else. Uh, I was also pretty happy that Slow Horses got nominated. I love that
Hmm.
show. And for those of you who listened last week, and when we were talking about some of our favorite series and movies of this year, one of the series I talked about was a short series called Adolescence, and it got nominations in both limited series and for actor Stephen Graham, which was great. And then, of course, for anyone who listened on audio last summer when we were going through The Penguin, I'm very happy that both Colin Farrell and Kristen Milioti got nominated for their roles in The Penguin because they're both well deserved.
Yeah, it seems like Apple TV Plus has finally found its foothold in the prestige TV biz with Shrinking, Severance, and especially The Studio. Studio tied the record with I think it was yeah, there's 23 nominations for a debut series, which is astounding, and it's a really good series. So yeah, good for Apple TV Plus because when it first came out 8 or 9 years ago, I believe it just had that one Jennifer Aniston series that uh, the name escapes me,
The
but
the morning
yeah,
show.
yeah, the morning show, yeah, which
Yeah.
wasn't really worth paying the subscription fee, but now it's another one you got to add to your.
Yeah, they've definitely built up a good roster. Ted Lasso obviously was one that drew a lot of eyeballs to Apple TV Plus, and they've been getting better and better.
The Bear nominated for Best Comedy again, even though it's not a comedy at all.
No, yeah, that just continues to be one of the most bizarre category choices, but whatever, it does well there, and so that's fine.
Yeah. And Handmaid's Tale only got one nomination for Best Guest Star for Cherry Jones in its sixth and final season. And it's interesting how Handmaid's Tale has really kind of fallen off in a way not many shows have, considering how critically successful it was in the beginning.
It definitely was. I mean, it was just so overwhelmingly bleak. I'll be honest, like
Yeah,
I thought it
yeah.
was a great series, but I kind of dropped off myself. And I think that's probably true for a lot of people that it's there's so much going on in the world right now. We don't need a series that's going to weigh us down that much more. And I think unfortunately it was just that's just what ended up hurting it.
Yeah. So anyway, the Emmys will air on September 14th, and we'll have thoughts, of course, and keep you updated. So,
Well,
Martin, do your best auctioneer voice and get us through this week's box report.
really quickly, though, before that, we've got some
Okay.
late breaking industry news that I didn't
Oh.
even get a chance to put into the notes that just came across the wire. And that is that CBS has announced that The Late Show with Stephen Colbert is actually going to end after next season, which comes as a bit of a shock considering it's usually the highest ranking late night show. But we'll see. Maybe we'll find out it has something to do with the settlement that they just had and the purchase by Paramount. But anyway, very interesting news that we'll have to talk about as developments arise. But box office review, here we go. So number one, coming in first place in his first weekend, Superman at 125 million domestically. It's now up to 261 million worldwide, which isn't that much. It's interesting, I guess, just because of Superman and the story and that character is. Only 36% of its sales were from overseas, which is
Hmm.
pretty rare these days. It's rare that it's under 50%. Like by contrast, in second place, Jurassic World Rebirth had a 40 million second weekend, and it's up to 548 million worldwide now, and 55% of that comes from overseas sales. So Superman doing really well in North America, not quite as well around the world. Third place, F1, $13 million weekend in its third weekend. It's up to $400 million worldwide. Fourth place, How to Train Your Dragon, fifth weekend, 7.9 million, and it's up to 566 million worldwide. And holding strong despite the absolute disaster that it is, Elio actually is still in fifth place, only 4 million more, but it's up to $120 million worldwide, which is still an absolute unmitigated disaster and losing money. But compared to the first weekend, it is holding a bit stronger than people might have expected.
Okay, and coming up this week, we have I Know What You Did Last Summer, the reboot. Uh, we have Smurfs, another Smurfs. It's like I don't know what the lore is there.
Yeah, I don't know. Do kids even know what Smurfs are these days? I have no.
My 7-year-old niece loves them, so I
Oh,
guess
okay. Okay. So they're
there's a
timeless
market.
then.
But
Great.
yeah, so and then we have Eddington. It's a Ari Aster flick coming out this week, and love Ari Aster. And then we have another concert film. We include those when there's nothing else to talk about in the coming weeks. And it's Roger Waters. This is not a drill, live from Prague, and I currently have the only ticket in that theater this week, so it's not going to do great.
Interesting. All right.
So, yeah, 25 greatest TV shows of the 21st century so far. It was quite the undertaking to make this list, and the time we allotted ourselves, we gave ourselves less than a day to come up with this list. But here we are. We both had a bunch going on. Full disclosure, I hope you don't mind me mentioning this, Martin, but you're in the middle of moving. But
That should be obvious by the disaster of boxes and broken down, deconstructed furniture around me. But yes.
fear not, ladies of Toronto, he's still going to be in the neighborhood. But this is a pretty catch as catch can list, and this isn't objective by any means. At least on my end, my personal tastes are 100% influenced by my picks here. But before we get into it, though, I'll admit I completely whiffed on a couple of these. My own boneheaded omissions
As
are
did I.
definitely Arrested Development, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and Flight of the Conchords. All three are in like top 10 comedies of all time for me, and I just didn't have. It's so hard to just amalgamize all these things into one, especially when we didn't have like a whole week to come up with these. So yeah, we got all the prestige things down, but the obscure kind of comedies really escaped us.
Yeah, I stupidly also completely left Curb off my list, and it probably should have made my list. Curb Your Enthusiasm, love that show. I also completely forgot about Peaky Blinders, so I'm glad you had it so high on your list that it still ends up on our top 25 and we can talk about. And then there were a few that I sort of considered but discounted and maybe shouldn't have, just because of the style that they were. One of them is Chappelle's Show, which you also you did have, again, it ends up on our list because you had it high enough. Another is Black Mirror, which, even though I mentioned it last week when I was talking about favorite series, I kind of didn't include it for some reason because it's anthology. And then two limited series that I didn't include, Chernobyl, which is just an unbelievable series, and The Looming Tower, which is one that I've loved and it's almost impossible to find these days. But I didn't
Well,
include them because they were sort of limited series.
well, to be fair to you, we decided that we weren't doing miniseries
That's
beforehand.
true. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I would have included Chernobyl and maybe Band of Brothers and John Adams if we were doing those kind of things, but yeah, we
Right.
decided beforehand. So yeah, that's not on you
No, I just
whatsoever.
wanted to tell the people out there who might be yelling, where the hell is Chernobyl? Yes,
Sure,
it's a
absolutely.
fantastic series. Didn't include it.
So without further ado, the list. Martin, kick us off.
Oh, one more caveat
Oh,
we should say that we are only including series that began their run after 2000. So even though The Sopranos, for instance, the majority of its run happened in the 21st century, it's not included because
yep.
it started in 1999. So that is why some of them you may see and wonder why they aren't there. It's probably because of timing.
So
So,
rewind. Without
yes.
further ado, the list. Martin, kick us off.
All right. So coming in at number 25, we have Veep. This is a comedy series on HBO created by Armando Iannucci. It lasted for 7 seasons from 2012 to 2019, starred Julia Louis-Dreyfus in the title character of the Vice President of the United States. And it is just one of the greatest political satires ever. Many people who work on the actual Hill in Washington say it's possibly also the most accurate about how politics and Congress actually functions, which is both scary and hilarious. The thing that's great about it is that not only is it a big political satire and it's talking about all sorts of political issues, but it doesn't overlook the personalities of people involved in politics and how those things can actually impact stuff that happens on a day to day in terms of legislation, in terms of meetings, in terms of public statements, and all that kind of stuff. Now, obviously, it's a comedy, it takes things to exaggerated levels, but maybe not that exaggerated.
Yeah, to be quite honest, I only watched a few episodes of Veep just because it just wasn't my it just didn't tickle my funny bone like it did a lot of people. Like, and I understand it, I appreciate it for all the reasons you just stated, but yeah, I never got through a full season of it for
Oh, wow.
whatever reason.
Okay.
So next up, we have The Americans. It's a Cold War spy thriller that ran for 6 seasons from 2013 to 2018 on FX. Created by Joe Weinberg and starred Kerry Russell and Matthew Rhys as Russian spies deep undercover as idyllic 1980s American, the nuclear family with two kids and their whole struggle with just trying to stay loyal to Mother Russia, but just still assimilating into American culture, especially when they see the stark contrast between communism and capitalism.
Yeah, it's such a great show about divided loyalties, but it's also a great family drama. And then the acting, just tremendous by the two leads that you mentioned and everybody else who's in this show.
Then we have Barry at number 23. Really dark comedy from Alan Berg and Bill Hader that ran for 4 seasons on HBO. HBO is going to be definitely a running theme
Yes.
from 2018 to 2023. Starred Bill Hader as the titular Barry, an ex Special Forces operative turned hitman turned wannabe thespian. It's dark, hilarious, and just very well done. It hits so many notes and everything from just like knee slapping laugh out loud comedy to just really dark, almost makes you want to like turn away from the screen, kind of cringe stuff. It earned TV legend, the Fonz himself, Henry Winkler, his first Emmy for Best Supporting Actor as
Love it.
Barry's acting coach.
He was great. This is a great show, and it's a really interesting show because over the course of the 4 seasons, it really does change it starts out as much more of a straight comedy with, dark undertones. And then by the end, it is not a comedy really at all. So over the course of those 4 seasons, it really kind of changes what it is, but yet still maintains the integrity of the show and the story. And Bill Hader can really act, which probably most people didn't know going in. It's a fantastic series.
Yeah, and I was not a fan at all of Bill Hader's when he was on SNL or in his various comedy bits, even when he was
Hmm.
even if he was in like Superbad and stuff like that. I just thought he was kind of just generic, and I did not know he had this kind of I just did not know he had this kind of talent in him. And he co-created the show, started it, wrote it, and everything. And yeah, it just gave me a real appreciation for the man as an artist.
Yeah, I'd have to disagree there. I mean, not disagree. It's a matter of taste. I always loved Bill Hader. I thought he was hilarious most of the time. Next up, at number 22, we have The Good Place. This is a network comedy series created by Michael Schur. Lasted for 4 seasons from 2016 to 2020. Starred Kristen Bell, Ted Danson, Jamila Jamil, a bunch of other people. It is just one of the most original sitcoms ever. It doesn't at all follow any sort of the traditional tropes of a sitcom, aside from that the fact that it's just a comedy. It's for people who don't know. I don't want to give away too much in case you're going to go and watch it, but it starts out with Kristen Bell's character has just died and wakes up and is in the good place, and it just goes from there, and it brings in a lot of sort of philosophical ideas, but at the end just bizarre characters, a lot of absurdist humor, but it's also just incredibly touching and poignant in terms of looking at meaning in people's lives in a way that doesn't ever go too over the top of being sappy, and it just still maintains that core of being a good solid comedy too.
Yeah, again, this is kind of like Veep. Well, not really, but I didn't watch a lot of The Good Place. I watched the pilot. Uh, wasn't really a fan. And this came out in 2016, where I was just so against anything that was a network sitcom that
Mm,
I never really gave it a fair shot. But I am a huge fan of Ted Danson's like later career. And Kristen Bell is so good at like the quirky like a Veronica Mars type
yeah.
character. But yeah, I just honestly I didn't give it a fair shot, so it's not the Good Place's fault, it's mine.
That happens. There are so many shows that if it doesn't catch you on first glance, sometimes you go back to it and sometimes you don't. And there are definitely a few like that you had on the list that I watched the first few episodes of. It didn't really grab me, and there's just so many other things to watch these days that I didn't go further.
Yeah, and I guess we should mention this, but yeah, sitcoms are probably the hardest. It's probably the hardest medium to hook people
Mhm.
because if you go back and look at any sitcom, even like classics like Seinfeld and Friends, the worst episodes are like the first 2 seasons,
Yeah.
and because it's all about the chemistry between the actors and the writers finding the dynamic between the actors and instilling that into the characters. So yeah, even like even if you go back to like I Love Lucy and shit like that, it's
Yeah,
all.
the Simpsons same way. The first few seasons aren't as good, and yeah, they are sitcoms. They're situational comedies. So the comedy and the humor comes from the situations, and all that comes from the characters. And before the audience understands who those characters are, it's not going to be as good or as funny. But also, a lot of times, it takes the show a while to kind of really realize who those characters are as well.
Yeah, that might be a good topic for later date, just the art of the sitcom.
Yes.
If we get
Yeah.
into that at some point. Okay, so number 21, Better Call Saul. It's the, of course, spinoff slash prequel to another series we'll get into later. Obviously, if we left that one off the list, then we'd be canceled, and I would cancel us personally. Uh, it ran for 6 seasons from 2015 to 2022, and it follows Bob Odenkirk's Jimmy McGill as he goes from run-of-the-mill con man to relatively successful attorney to an extremely successful con man slash lawyer.
This is, I think people will probably be surprised that this isn't higher on our list because I know a lot of people absolutely love this show. Some people think that it may even be as good or better than as Breaking Bad. I don't think so. For me, it's a very good show, and it's certainly one that I appreciated. I never loved it as much as I appreciated it, if that makes any sense. It
No.
just didn't never grabbed me the same way that Breaking Bad did, but it was obviously a very, very good show, just incredibly well written and detailed. And Gilligan is really just so good at hammering down on every little point that he wants to make in episodes and tying it all together. And so it's a very good show, but it was a little lower down on my list because it just never grabbed me. I just didn't ever love it as much.
Yeah, I forgot if it was Hollywood Reporter or Variety because I do look up like the major publications lists just not to influence me but just to grab inspiration because I might miss something and
Mhm.
obviously I did when we were making this list, but yeah, a lot of them have Better Call Saul above Breaking Bad, and that just does not click with me
Yeah.
whatsoever. The character development, I mean, it is a great show, even if it's stood on its own, but I mean, Breaking Bad, we'll get into
Yes.
Breaking
Yeah.
Bad, obviously.
Yeah.
But before
Okay.
that, we have a drink break.
Yes.
And Martin had a very good idea for this one. And we're gonna do a did we decide how many beers we're doing? Do you have four?
Four. I've got four.
Okay, yeah, okay, yep. So we're gonna do a beer flight. And so we're gonna have four beers. And personally, I wanted to pick out four beers from a local brewery that I've never had before. So these are all going to be new experiences for me. And first off, I have this Hardywood German style lager, and this was made in Richmond, Virginia. What are you working with?
So I am also only one of the four is a beer that I've had before, and I'm also going with some local microbrews. This one is there are just a million of them in and around Toronto and in all of Ontario. This one is a red ale by Bob Cajun Brewing Company, which is a small town an hour or two out of Toronto, made famous because it's the title of a great song by the Tragically Hip. But
Oh man, yeah, the subjects of that one documentary you keep wanting me to watch.
yeah, but Bob Cajun, here we go. A little more than that. Yeah, it's tough with because we didn't want to pre-pour the flights like you get them in a bar. But yeah, here we go. Let's give this a try. Oh, that's quite good. I am a big fan normally of red ales and ambers and things like that. And this one is very flavorful.
Mm.
Almost a nutty taste to it, which is yeah, I really like it.
All right, yeah, I'm also a fan of this one. It's a just kind of a light Pilsner style. Uh, Yeah, just yeah, it's a good, refreshing beer, not too heavy. It'd be good on a summer afternoon probably.
Nice.
And we have three more coming at you. So we're into the 20s. Number 20, The Borgias. It's a Showtime series set in the Renaissance and covered the most notorious family to ever circle the papal seat of St. Peter. It ran for 3 seasons before it was canceled, which left me absolutely devastated. With when online polls come up about which series got canceled too early, which didn't get a proper run or deserve another season, I always throw this series into the ring, and then I get pretty good reactions because it's not one of those that well, obviously people weren't watching that much of it, otherwise
Yeah.
it got renewed. As most of you know, we're huge fans of political intrigue in general, especially when it applies to the Catholic Church. And the Borgias are almost synonymous with corruption and the Holy Mother Church, modern pedophilia aside, I suppose. Uh, it stars Jeremy Irons as Rodrigo Borgia, who comes to power as Pope Alexander Sextus. Not to be confused with Borgia, which unfortunately debuted in 2011 as well, which probably split the audience and was harmful to both
I think so.
series.
Yeah.
I know we're trying to keep things tight here, so I won't ramble too long on ones that aren't in our top 10, but I really feel like the planned final season was robbed from me. And the one silver lining is that creator Neil Jordan wrote a final script completely on spec, which means for free without any studio payment or anything, and published it online so the fans could have some sort of closure, and it was very good.
You know that I'm a big fan of history, and I'm also a big fan of period dramas if they're done really well. And this was absolutely done well. And all the intrigue that you're talking about, all the scandal that you don't necessarily think about in terms of the papacy. We're talking about a time when people were succeeded as pope by their sons, which obviously shouldn't happen right, in these times in the medieval church. But it's just, yeah, it's fantastic intrigue, and as you say, it is I can't remember exactly the timeline, but we're talking about Machiavellian type politics at its
Yeah, it was
best, right?
the
It's
1500.
Yeah, yeah. So it's really just what can you do to get ahead for the sake of power, and it's great stuff.
Yeah, Machiavelli was actually a huge secondary character in that, so that was
Right.
also a great
Yeah. Yeah.
subplot.
And Machiavelli was also obviously big in the I'm drawing a total blank, but for the family in Florence
Oh,
at the
the
same time.
Medici's.
The Medici's, sorry, right. So obviously, yeah, all that kind of political intrigue, it's all, yeah, the Medici's and the Borgias and everybody else. All right, next up. Number 19, we've got Stranger Things. This was a Netflix series, is a Netflix series created by Matt and Ross Duffer, known as the Duffer Brothers. It has wrapped its fifth and final season, which is upcoming in November, I believe it comes out. And so it's run from 2016 to 2025, which is a bit long for a five season show. They've had some big gaps in there, and the kids are all getting very old. But it stars Millie Bobby Brown, Finn Wolfhard, Winona Ryder, David Harbour, and just a host of others. It is just such a great nostalgic show on one hand because it's set in the 80s and it's got all that great 80s feel to it with the music and the haircuts and the style and the Dungeons and Dragons and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it has also managed to separate itself and create its own mythology and blazes its own way forward in a way where it isn't just entirely derivative, which it very well could have been at the beginning. This a show about kids who were playing Dungeons and Dragons, and it could have been very derivative 80s show, but it's not. And it has really created this great set of characters and interesting stories and whole different worlds that are just fascinating to get into.
Yeah, and we mentioned Stranger Things, I think once or twice during our Spielberg saga, three-part Spielberg saga. But yeah, it's very much a mesh between like Spielberg and Stephen King in the 80s. And yeah, all the things you said are absolutely true. Uh, I absolutely loved the first season. I thought it was amazing. No, I really liked season two, but after that, I thought it was a big fall off, and that's why I didn't include it in my
Mm,
rankings on here. Especially since uh the episode called the Lost Sister, where 11 goes out and hangs out with all these other like
yeah,
punk rock. I thought that was one of the worst 60 minutes of television I've ever seen in my life, and
it
that's not
really
an
it really wasn't
exaggeration.
great. And
So
obviously the creators believed so as well because it's basically never been referred to since. in this
So yeah, when you have that, you're disqualified from this list. But I mean, it has had a very big cultural impact, and I
Yeah.
get it does deserve to be on this list. I'm not knocking you for including it.
Well, and also like I agree there. So that was I think in the second season, and it was yeah, not great, but the second season overall was very good as well. Third season did fall off a bit. I thought they totally righted the ship though in the fourth season. I thought the fourth
Mm.
season was absolutely fantastic. So that's it's definitely redeemed itself for me. Next up, we have at number 18, The Office. And now this is the US version of The Office. It's a obviously based on a British series, which was created by Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant. And this one's created by those two as well as Greg Daniels. And whereas the British series only had 14 episodes, this one went for 9 seasons and 188 episodes. It starred Steve Carell, John Krasinski, Jenna Fisher, and a whole bunch of other people. And I think there is some debate about some people prefer the original, some people prefer the US version. I would say the reason why for me this one ended up higher than the British one on my list is the first season or two were very much a copy of the British series in a way, in terms of tone, in terms of some of the stories. But once it found its own way, and again, getting back to what you were talking about sitcoms and figuring out who the characters are and what those situations are, once it found its own way, I think it actually surpassed the original, just in terms of the depth of the stories and the characters. And while the original was, is very Ricky Gervais, is just very kind of cutting and caustic and not much room for any kind of heart or anything. This one showed that you can have both. Now, this series, I think, did fall off quite a bit after Steve Carell left, but those, whatever it was, first 6 seasons with Steve Carell, he just made that character into something, I think, well beyond what Ricky Gervais had intended it to be, or him and the writers and the creators. And so I think for that reason, it ended up surpassing the British series, even though obviously it owes so much to the original.
Yeah, that is all completely fair, and yeah, I ranked the UK version above the US version, but yeah, all your point, and it's so beloved. It's like everybody these days seems to be either watching The Office or Friends.
Yes,
So
it's
yeah,
true.
it's wild the staying power that those two sitcoms have on Netflix and other streaming series. So yeah, I'm totally fine with that being on the list. So then we have we have Bluey. And yes, it's a kids' cartoon about a family of anthropomorphic Australian cattle dogs and the trials, tribulations, and fun times while they raise their two daughters, Bluey and Bingo. And I did not put this in as a joke or just me being a fan of kids' cartoons, which I'm generally not, honestly. But I really believe Bluey deserves to be here in the rankings because it's not just fun, funny, and entertaining, but at its core, it's a show about how to be a good, nurturing parent, and it's disguised as a show for little kids, and it's absolutely brilliant. And like I don't have kids, you don't have kids, but we know kids. We have
We
we
were
have
kids at one point.
we have nieces and nephews, and you know I'm obligated to sit down and watch kid shows from time to time, and this one is genuinely just so entertaining. There's adult jokes about like parenting with a hangover, and it's not explicitly said, but everything's so implied in such a brilliant way, and they're all like little 7-minute episodes, and it's just such a very well done show.
This is one that I haven't seen, but you've talked about how much you like it before, and so I really need to give it a try at some point. But obviously, yes, their kids animated shows can at times supersede the level of what would normally be considered a kids animated show. I mean, when we were talking about Spielberg, both of us waxed poetic about our love for Animaniacs, and that's another,
Mm.
ostensibly kids show that was just filled with jokes that really only adults would get. So I haven't seen Bluey. It's one I definitely need to watch.
All right, and with that, our series of drink breaks continues with
Yes.
number two. And my number two, let's see, I'm just drawing these randomly out of my makeshift cooler that I've built on the desk here. Okay. Next up is Richmond Lager, uh, American craft lager, 5% alcohol, and we'll see how this one goes. What's your second?
So my second is the only one that I've actually tried before, but I wanted to try a whole bunch of microbrews, and this is one that I found. It's Woodhouse Brewing Company. It's just their lager. And so it is, if I remember correctly, I think I've only had it once before, but I remember it being just a very smooth, easy drinking, nice lager.
Okay, yeah, so we both just happen to have a lager on this round.
Yep. So here's what mine looks like. A bit darker in color for standard lager, but yeah, very nice. Bit of an aftertaste, but not a bitter aftertaste. I am not an IPA fan. Everything is IPA these days, especially with microbrews, it seems. I'm not a big IPA fan, but this isn't a bitter, hoppy aftertaste. This is just a very nice aftertaste. So
This
it's
one is
not super light as a lager, this one, but it's yeah, it's quite good. How about yours?
this one is really weird.
Uh-oh.
It smells like dog food.
Oh no. You didn't get a skunky beer, did you?
No, I mean these all came in one variety pack, and
Oh, okay. Yeah. Does it taste like dog food too?
it tastes better than it smells.
Okay, okay. Well,
But
that's something then to look
yeah,
at it.
uh, not a fan of this one.
Okay. All right. Well,
All right, so
we won't dwell on that then. We don't need to. Oh, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I was gonna say we don't need to shame them on air, but you're gonna just hold it up. All right. Yeah. Next up.
Okay, yeah, we have Chappelle's Show at number 16. Even though it only ran for 2 seasons and kind of two and a half if you count the lost episodes with Charlie Murphy and Donnell Rawlings, which nobody really does. It's for my money the best sketch comedy show ever, and that's even if you include like SNL and Mad TV and all those. Because it was just so subversive, so original, so innovative, and just a showcase of the mind that is just one of the greatest comedic minds of our time, and that, of course, is Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, this show just hit like a bomb when it came out and just totally upended what people thought they were getting from a sketch comedy show and was just so funny and just attacked different issues in a way that nobody had seen before, the way that the show dealt with racial issues and other things like that. Chappelle just didn't hold back at all. He just went there, and it was always just incredibly hilarious. And then also just bizarre and fun too, like all the Charlie Murphy stuff, all the Prince. That motherfucker could bowl. Like just so many great skits in this show.
Yeah, I forgot that the very first skit of the entire show was the black white supremacist who was in the KKK, and
Yeah.
I remember that being an iconic skit, but I just went back and rewatched them just as a refresher, and I was like, he really kicked it off with that.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
god damn, that is just like gives no fucks whatsoever about what
Yeah.
people think. Like a blind black dude that grew up in the KKK. It just
Yeah. Or
like
the or the white family with the name that I'm not gonna say. Like just some of these kids, the racial draft, some of these kids, and then obviously just very topical stuff too, like Black Bush was
yeah,
hilarious.
yeah.
Oh shit, the
Yeah,
motherfucker's got yellow cake.
yeah,
He's-
you know, he called out everyone from like OJ to R. Kelly,
Yeah.
and as you pointed out, the late great Charlie Murphy's True Hollywood Stories with Rick James and Prince, and I'm Rick James, bitch.
Yeah. And then the one where Wayne Brady comes on and
Oh my
just
God.
because at that time too, people had never seen Wayne Brady like this. And then Wayne Brady, to his credit, just totally went there as well. Anyway, just incredible stuff. We could go on
Is
and
Wade
on
Brady
talking
gonna
about
have to choke a bitch?
just unbelievable stuff. All right, next up at number 15, we've got Fleabag. This was an Amazon series created by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who also starred in it. It also was very short, two short seasons of 6 episodes each. But this show really made a mark. Just the wit, the humor, this, but at the same time, the sort of sense of despair that many feel, and finding joy and humor in all the chaos of a messy life. Just all of it came together to make something more than the sum of its parts, I think, in many ways. And so 12 episodes, but wow, what a shining star of a series for those short 2 seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And Andrew Scott was amazing in that as well, and coined the
Yeah.
term hot priest. And, but yes, just so brilliantly written, and again, so innovative with her breaking the fourth wall all the time and talking directly to the audience. And yeah, Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I'm kind of surprised she hasn't. I mean, she was in the last Indiana Jones and
Yeah.
co-wrote it, and she does a lot of like script doctoring for
Mhm.
various projects. But I'm surprised she hasn't got like a huge like first look deal where she can just star in and write her own stuff again, because she is just obviously so talented.
Yeah, I mean, she's one of these people. Instead of giving uh, $300 million deals to Adam Sandler, not that I don't love Adam Sandler, but Phoebe Waller-Bridge seems absolutely like the type of person who should get a major deal like that to just create shows and things, because she's obviously just an incredibly talented writer and comedian.
Hmm.
And then next up, oh, I've got three in a row here. All right, next up, I've got 30 Rock, which was an NBC network sitcom created by Tina Fey, who, in my mind, is one of the greatest comedy minds of the 21st century. It ran for 7 seasons from 2006 to 2013, starred Tina Fey, Alec Baldwin, Tracy Morgan, Jane Krakowski. It is a fast-paced, absurdist humor series at its best. And I think what I most love about this series is that it can jump between intelligent commentary and ridiculous stupidity, not only within the same episode, but often several times within one scene. It just managed to cram all that into all the chaos and stuff that was happening. And it's Tina Fey's kind of loose take on what it takes to make a show like Saturday Night Live, which obviously she was a head writer of for a number of years.
Yeah. Again, I'm sorry, but I never liked it. I've tried so hard over the years to be a fan of Tina Fey. I still to this day love the original Mean Girls. I think
Yeah.
that's her best work, just because but yeah, I keep trying to be a fan just because everybody in my film school just keeps peer pressuring me into it, and I even paid actual money to go see her movie, like Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, and
Oh, yeah, I didn't like that one as much.
yeah, but Tracy Morgan and Alec Baldwin are funny as fuck though.
Tracy Morgan is just such a weird dude. And to
Well, so
begin
is Alec
with,
Baldwin.
yeah, and so is Alec Baldwin. And then this series just let him cook in a way
Mm.
that I can't imagine any other series would have let him. Like he's just so weird, and then they just turn it up, and it's hilarious. And that's another thing that made this show work for me was just how different the characters were. And so they're all playing off each other again in terms of how do you create a successful sitcom? You have different characters that are very at odds at times, so you're going to have a lot of conflict, but also that difference creates comedy and tension. And this show really did that. And then yes, as I said, three in a row. Okay. And then number 13 coming in. I've got to talk about Andor again. I won't go on for too long because I've talked about my love for Andor many times. This is a Disney Plus series created by Tony Gilroy. It has only had 2 seasons of 12 episodes each, and it's done. So 2002, 2025, that's it. Starred Diego Luna, Stellan Skarsgård, Adria Arjona, a whole bunch of other people. I have talked about this show so many times and some of the thematic things that I love about it. But I'll just also mention the pacing of this show and the way they started out each season slowly and deliberately building the pieces bit by bit of the story, and then just keep amping up the tension throughout the entire 12 episodes of each season until each season ends with this just great crescendo of what rebellions are like. Just incredible pacing in this series.
All right, well, I have some huge unsolicited film reviews. Breaking news.
Oh,
I have finally watched the first episode of
hey,
Andor.
yes, finally. Woohoo.
Brr, brr, brr. Yeah, because I obviously knew you were gonna have it on this list, and I had a note under that just and it said just crickets. I would have nothing to say. So this is the one thing that I went back and watched. Well,
Okay.
didn't go back and watch. I actually just
Yeah,
started to
watched it.
watch.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, I will continue to watch it going forward. So
Yeah,
after
because
all,
as I said, it's a slow build at first. The first episode won't give you that much of a sense of what's going on. It's the world building kind of in that first episode.
yeah, but that first domino has been clicked down. So
Excellent. I love it. So happy to hear that.
now you can get off my back.
Not until you finish it.
Yeah, of course, of course, of course. Okay, then we have number 12. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. We talked about it last week in best uh, shows of 2025 so far, and it's only 2 episodes deep so far. But longest running live action American sitcom at 17 seasons, debuted on FX in 2005, and man, again, started slow. First season wasn't great, but then they recruited Danny DeVito for season 2, and it's just been balls to the wall ever since then. Never nominated for an Emmy, which is just kind of mind-boggling. Just and they get into that a lot, like through like meta storylines in their show, especially the one where the gang tries desperately to win an award, where their bar kind of doubles as their show. And I'm not gonna get too deep into the weeds here, but yeah, just so consistently funny. Probably not for everybody, but if you're into just not gross out comedy, but just cringe, awkward, all kinds of different situations. That yeah, Always Sunny Philadelphia still running strong when the gang's been together for 20 years or so.
That's incredible, that staying power. And yes, we've talked about this before. This isn't a show that I had on my list. I've always enjoyed it, but I also haven't seen a lot of it. Certainly not all 17 seasons. So it just hasn't ever been sort of at the top of my list of my absolute favorites or ones that I think are the best. But it's obviously it's a good fun show for sure.
And with that, it's time for
Yes. Running out of places to put these glasses and half empty cans of
all
beer. All right, what's your third one?
right. We got an IPA. It's the Great Return IPA there. And yeah, so yeah, by the way, that last one didn't only taste bad, it leaves like a kind of aftertaste that will probably not leave you making out with anybody at the end of the night.
Alrighty.
And yeah, I'm also not a huge fan of IPAs traditionally,
Hmm.
especially since I think I was 16 or 17 and we used to I guess the statute of limitations has passed for this particular crime, but we used to raid my friend's neighbor's fridge for his
Oh
beer,
no.
and then beer bong whatever was in there, and
Oof,
yeah, so we were beer bonging IPAs, and that
that's a
turned me
terrible
off.
idea.
That was a really bad morning the next
I'm sure it
day.
was. All right, so my next one is Barn Burner, which is an amber ale by Bose, which is I've never tried this particular one, but I certainly know Bose. It comes from a small town not too far from Ottawa, I believe. And yeah, they've just been a great sort of small brewery in Ontario for a long time. And so let me try Barn Burner.
This one is really good, by the way.
Oh, good to hear.
Now, I don't know if it's really good in and of
Just
itself or
in
if it's just
contrast to the last one.
yeah.
And Barn Burner, not bad. Yeah, not bad. I think in terms of reds or ambers, I'd prefer that first one, the dockside Bob Cajun one.
Hmm.
But this isn't bad. This is a lot lighter and easier as a drink. So I think general public probably would prefer this Barn Burner. It's a little bit of an easier drink. It's very good. All right. So now we're into, no, we're not into the top 10. We're top 11 now. We're into
Almost.
yeah, almost top 10. Number 11, we've got The Crown. And this is a Netflix series. It was originally going to be BBC, but then they balked at the price. But Netflix luckily stepped in, and it was created by Peter Morgan. It ran for 6 seasons from 2016 to 2023. And it tells the story of generally Queen Elizabeth II and her reign, and spans a whole bunch of different decades, each decade basically told in a single season. And so over the course of its run, it had three people playing the Queen: Claire Foy, Olivia Colman, and Imelda Staunton, in various ages that the Queen lived. This show, in my mind, just did an incredible job of showing us not only the personal life and the internal dynamics of the royal family and the lives of these people, what they lived on a day-to-day basis. But also, what I think it was brilliant at was in the same episode showing how those things intersected with important events of the changing world around them and the influence that one would have on the other. And sometimes it was a two-way street. Sometimes things that are going on in personal life caused a reaction to what's going on in terms of world events. Sometimes the world events intrude on the personal lives of the family. And I just thought it was a very interesting, intimate look at obviously a notoriously private family and a family whose image is very carefully constructed and crafted. And I just thought it was a fantastic series.
Yeah, this is another one where I absolutely loved the first two seasons.
Mm.
Excuse me, been drinking beer, had to stifle a burp real quick. Um, but it's also another one that I felt kind of fell off after Claire Foy and Matt Smith as Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip had to leave the show because obviously they aged out of those particular roles.
Yeah,
Um, I thought Olivia Colman and Emily Staunton did fine jobs, but I don't know like because I loved John Lithgow in the first season as Winston
he
Churchill
was fantastic. Yeah.
and Jared Harris as King George the fourth.
No, yeah, the sixth, no, eighth, seventh.
Okay, well,
Man,
yeah.
wow, I should really know this stuff. I do know this stuff. Why can't I think of it? Anyway, yeah, go ahead. I'll find it.
Yeah, so yeah, and even though Jared Harris is only in the first two or three episodes, I thought he just lent a real vulnerability to that kind of served as a launching pad for Claire Foy to be the queen, and I thought the interaction between those two was fantastic. And after that, I thought it was just kind of like just like a highlight reel rather than a drama series, and with exceptions, of course, but it just wasn't as compelling.
Yeah, see, it's George the sixth. Yeah,
Okay.
I agree and I disagree. I think
Okay.
the show became more difficult to make, especially once they got into the 80s and 90s and this and all the stuff with Princess Di and all that kind of
Sure.
all those storylines because in part because it's stuff that we're much more familiar with.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
and whereas the 50s, I mean, obviously we didn't remember that, but there also just isn't as much archival footage. There wasn't 24/7 news cycle stuff about Princess Di, like there was for Princess Di in some of the scandals of the 50s. And so I think it became more difficult. I think they still did do a very good job of making a lot of it work. Like I thought a lot of the stuff in the 80s when they're showing the relationship and the changing and growing relationship between the Queen and Margaret Thatcher, a lot of that
Mhm.
stuff was actually really, really good and interesting. Again, the behind the scenes stuff, probably in that case, more interesting. And again, who knows how much of this was actual fact? They obviously had to use a bit of conjecture. For some of Peter Morgan has done an incredible amount of research on the royal family. He wrote the and produced the film The Queen, which was about Queen Elizabeth, that showed Queen Elizabeth and how she dealt with the aftermath of Princess Di's death. And so this is obviously a subject he's very familiar with, but still, obviously, there's a lot of creative license. Yeah, I do think that it's still, even I think the show became more difficult, but I do think that it still maintained a high level of quality right up to the very end.
Yeah. Completely fair. So now we're in the top 10.
Yes, we are indeed.
And number 10 is Succession. It's the HBO series that ran from 2018 to 2023 about a family fighting over the control of a multimedia, multi-billion dollar conglomerate that none of the children helped build. It's full of brilliant actors: Brian Cox, Jeremy Strong, Kieran Culkin, Sarah Snook, Matthew McFadden, Alan Ruck, and others. It's a kind of thinly veiled story of the Murdochs and Fox News, but things are moving fast these days, and cable news has nowhere near the influence it did even a year ago, let alone when the show is being written. So it's almost already culturally irrelevant, which is why I kind of rated it so low, even though it won a ton of Emmys for every season it was on. But yeah, for its time, and I say for its time like it's 20 years ago, but like I said, things are moving so fast that it really is of its time.
It is, although I think that even during the show they're coming to grips with that, right? Because they're also the last couple of seasons are talking about this kind of standard media organization and company being broken up and sold off in different parts, and what's taking over are the telecoms, the internet companies, those kinds of things, and that all played into the plot. But I think while it the bit about network broadcast news is becoming outdated, I think what is not becoming outdated is the influence and importance of these just like absolutely uber fucking rich people who basically live beyond the lives of anyone else.
Hmm.
And in their minds, and it may not even be an intentional thing, beyond basically the laws and rules that everybody else lives by. And I
100%.
think
Yeah.
that in many ways, Succession was a satire. It was very funny at points, but it is obviously isn't a comedy. But I think that at its heart, it's a send up of that kind of power and influence that increasingly people have. And I think that is still is very topical, and I don't see that going away anytime soon.
No,
I was very surprised that you didn't have this on your list because for me this came in at number five for me, which is why it's still, even though you didn't have it, comes in at number 10 on our list because I just thought this show also did something that is incredibly difficult to do, and that's to make a very, very compelling drama, family drama about characters where none of them have any redeeming qualities.
oh, okay.
There
Yeah.
isn't a
No,
single character that you sort of identify with or root for, or they're all just fucking terrible people. And yet, the way the show crafted the tension between them and the battles and the drama and the dialogue and the characters themselves, I just thought was so brilliant that it's I do think this is one of the absolute best shows of the 21st century.
no, no, you're right. Because like even Greg, who's kind of like the underdog, is still a despicable
By
person.
the end, he's
Yeah,
totally undermining everything about that seemed to make him have a shred of humanity at the beginning of the series.
yeah, and you're also right about um one of the things is like when they go to like all these exotic locations that none of us would even dream of ever visiting, it's always just like taken for granted. Like you see these like huge vistas of like the Swiss Alps and everything, and they're all just like head down. Okay, what's next in the business and
Yeah.
all that kind of shit. So I guess the main reason why I didn't include it is because I thought the last season especially was very repetitive as far as the dialogue went,
Hmm.
and the story was still good, but it seemed like you know it's always good to let your actors riff a little bit, but everything was just like, and it just seemed all very, very silted, especially from Jeremy Strong, who I think is a brilliant actor. But um, it all just started to grate on me because I binge watched it. I didn't watch it week after week, and it just
Oh,
seemed like
okay.
all the conversations seemed exactly the same between the three siblings,
Right.
and there were still great moments, but I thought the last season, while it sucked the landing at the very last couple of scenes, it just
Oh,
didn't do it for
interesting.
me.
No, for me, I still think there were some incredible highlights in that last season. I mean, I think the episode where Logan Roy finally dies and the immediate aftermath of that entire episode of the family dealing with it, I would put that episode up against almost any single episode of the show ever. I thought that
Yeah,
was just an incredible episode. So even I can sort of see what you mean about some of it being a bit repetitive in that last season, but it still had some incredible highlights.
yeah, and very Shakespearean the entire setup
Yes,
from top to
yeah,
bottom.
absolutely.
All right, so number nine we have Peaky Blinders. For in my opinion, it's the coolest series ever made, and I tell people that haven't seen it, and I don't know how else to really explain it though, because it's just like it's just so fucking cool.
It's a
Like,
vibe. It's a vibe.
yeah, it really is. And but the outfits, the shots, the actors, the characters, and especially the music.
Yeah.
We're talking Nick Cave, the Arctic Monkeys. Like, anyway, I guess I should say that Peaky Blinders is a show about it's about a gangster family in Birmingham, England, in the aftermath of the Great War, aka World War One. The family is led by Tommy Shelby, played by Oscar winner Cillian Murphy. Supporting actors include Tom Hardy, Adrian Brody, Anya Taylor-Joy, and many others. While it never garnered any accolades on this side of the pond, It's seriously one of the greatest shows ever made, and there's a movie coming out next year with all the surviving crew through Netflix.
Yeah, this is the one when we mentioned our omissions that I was kicking myself most for completely forgetting about and leaving off my list somehow. As we said, it was very difficult to come up with a full list in 24 hours, which is what we gave ourselves as we were scrambling to come up with a topic for this week. And you may have heard last week that we still didn't know what we were going to do this week. So anyway, we found this. This show is great. There are times when anachronistic music really grates on me if it's used in, like, for instance, there was that movie A Knight's Tale with
Yeah,
Heath Ledger a while ago.
we
Yeah,
will
and
rock
that
you.
just didn't work for
Yeah,
me at
yeah,
all. Somehow in this show, it absolutely works. Like, even though
yeah,
this is set in, the 1920s and whatever, this modern music, the way it managed to, and so I don't know what magic alchemy they had to come up with that to where it actually worked and tonally fit the story, but it really did. And then again, yes, there's just the characters, the the sense of obviously sort of a stylized version, but really living in these old brick row houses in Birmingham, just very cool, stylistically, the set design, the way it's shot, all that just incredibly well done.
yeah. And I'm still shocked that it hasn't received any recognition in the US. But
Yeah.
what are you gonna do?
Speaking of British shows, next up at number 8, we have Sherlock, which is a BBC series that's a modern take on the Arthur Conan Doyle stories. The series was created by Mark Gatiss of the Bank of Bravos himself and Stephen Moffat. This had 4 seasons in quotations from 2010 to 2017, but really what it was is there were 15 almost movie length episodes,
Yeah.
and each one an adaptation of a different one of Conan Doyle's stories. It starred Benedict Cumberbatch as Sherlock, Martin Freeman as Watson, and in I think 7 or 8 of those episodes, Andrew Scott as Moriarty, the great nemesis of Sherlock Holmes.
Hot
This,
priest.
yes, the hot priest himself. This is just such a witty show. But also created such fully realized characters that I think go well beyond. I've read the complete works of Arthur Conan Doyle, the Sherlock Holmes. I love them, but I think the characters in the show go well beyond the literary works, and it's the way that they adapted everything to modern London. Most of the stories take place right in London. Was just very clever, seamless, and just really worked. I loved everything about this series.
Yeah, even the very opening scene of the first episode, where Watson is having war flashbacks. It's like he received a wound in Afghanistan, which is
Yeah,
what he did in the original. And so
yeah.
yeah, it it it's such a great adaptation because it all lines up with Arthur Conan Doyle's uh original novels, but at
Mhm.
the same time, it's updated, but it doesn't change anything really
No,
substantial. It's just little tweaks here and there. And yeah, Benedict Cumberbatch is so awesome,
yeah.
and uh, yeah, every mystery is so well crafted, especially if you haven't read all of the original novels. But like, yeah, even like the Hounds of the Baskervilles and the original one where the first episode where like the taxi driver is the
Oh, Study in
killer.
Scarlet.
Yeah,
Yeah, or at
yeah.
least that was that they did tweak the titles too. So I actually can't remember right now if Study in Scarlet is the name of the story or the name of the episode. But anyway.
And then even the one where Sherlock's supposed to kill himself.
Right.
Blanking on the names of the episodes, but yeah, Andrew
Mhm.
Scott was fantastic as Moriarty, and yeah, just such an entertaining series of basically mini movies, as you said.
Yeah. And again, they didn't hesitate to, or they didn't try to make Sherlock too nice or too relatable. Sherlock's a dick through
Yeah,
most
yeah,
of this.
and he's definitely on the spectrum.
Yes. Yeah. But it totally works, right? As you say, that kind of fits in a bit with the Conan Doyle books. Like he's just so smart and so in his head about everything that's going on and noticing all these little things that he doesn't need a filter because that's
Mm,
just not what he's there to do. It's a little tweak on the Conan Doyle character, but isn't that far removed from what it should be. So
yep.
just great choices in that series.
Yeah, and everybody involved is always, whenever they're interviewed about it, they're always leaving the door open. Like they may come back, but everybody's so busy, and
Yeah.
they're all A-list now. So
I would love for them to make a few more.
yeah, yeah, that'd be so cool. So number seven, the marvelous Mrs. Maisel, the brilliant Amazon series by Amy. I always get her name wrong. Amy Sherman Palladino, starring Rachel Brosnahan, our new Lois Lane in the Superman, as the titular character, along with Alex Bornstein and Tony Shalhoub, among others. It covers the rise of Midge Maisel from a struggling Manhattan housewife to the very preeminent female comedian of the 1960s. It ran from 2017 to 2023, won a fuck ton of Emmys, and catapulted Brosnahan to superstardom.
Yes, and well deserved all those Emmys. I love this show. I've actually been rewatching it since with Superman coming out, and I knew Rachel Brosnahan was coming back in our lives on the big screen. I've been rewatching the show, and the things that stand out to me about it, I mean, there are so many great things about this show. The characters, Tony Shalhoub is just one of the funniest characters that's ever been put on screen as Midge Maisel's father. Just unbelievable stuff. But it's so funny at times. It's about a comic, and a lot of times those aren't funny, those kinds of stories, but they make it really funny. It's the kind of funny and quippy and witty, almost like Sorkin-like in that nobody in real life actually speaks this way, but it
Yeah,
still makes
yeah,
it
yeah.
just incredibly funny and entertaining. And yet at the same time, there's sort of a melancholy to the whole story because it's about changing lives. It's about the role of different people in society and people trying to forge their own path and breaking with traditions of their families. And there's just so many themes and so many things going on in the show at the same time that it's funny and witty and entertaining and enjoyable. And the costumes and I just love this show. It's fantastic.
It's seriously one of the best comedies of all time. But at the
Yeah.
same time, as you said, it's you know, tonally it runs the gamut and it
Yeah.
makes us
Yeah.
feel for the characters, and that's what you want, especially in like the modern day of prestige TV. So
Mhm. Definitely.
with that,
Yes.
Fear Flight number four.
Brings us to our last one.
All
So
right.
I
So
wasn't
this
picking
one,
them totally at random because I did want to save this one to the end.
okay, you go ahead then.
So because oftentimes when you get these flights of beer, there's always one kind of bizarre one that's sort of their seasonal beer or something like that. So I've got something from Nickelbrook Brewing Company, and it's called Jam Stand. So I
Okay.
think this is a raspberry Weiss beer. It says it's got real fruit flavor
Okay.
with
Interesting.
vanilla and hibiscus. So I have no idea what this is going to be like. This could be good. It could be weird. It could be terrible. But I just figured I'd get one bizarre one because often when you get those beer fights, there's one in there that you're kind of like, really? Okay.
Yeah, I kind of did something similar because I have the um Tropication
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Tropication Juicy Hazy IPA.
Juicy hazy.
Again, seven. Oh wow, 7% alcohol. Here we go.
Good thing you saved that one for the end of the show.
Yeah. Tropication. All
And yes,
right.
mine comes out very, and actually on screen, it doesn't look quite as pink as it does in my hand. So obviously, it's very raspberry type color and tinge to it as well. Wow, that is fruity. That is almost like a raspberry radler or something. That is just, wow, that is very interesting. It's not bad, but it's certainly not the kind of beer where you're going to sit down and have a couple of them. It's good just for a little bit.
Okay. This one smells interesting. Not necessarily good, not necessarily bad. Okay.
Yeah.
That one it's kind of like grapefruity, but not overwhelming.
Okay. And as an IPA, not too hoppy,
No.
not too bad. Okay.
No. Yeah, it has the perfect balance. Yeah, I think that might be actually yeah, I think that might be my favorite of the four.
Hmm. All right. I
All right,
think
yeah.
my favorite is probably that first one I had. I really liked that. But this is actually pretty good, but as I said, it's not something you're going to want a lot of. Raspberry or jam stand. Yes. All right. Into the
Yeah,
top.
this is oh, sorry. Yeah, this is one you're probably only going to drink one or two of. The
Right.
first one was definitely the most refreshing and most like if you're going to be out on a summer day, the crisp golden pilsner.
Right.
All right, let's go.
Yes, into the top six. And at number six, we've got The Boys. I should mention that the Crown, no, that Peaky Blinders, Sherlock, and Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, although we both absolutely love those shows, they probably ended up higher on our lists than we would have expected. And that's only because we both had them on our lists and we both had them relatively
Mhm.
high. And because of that, they ended up higher than some other ones that, one or other of us may have had in the top parts of our list. But because of the patented algorithm we use, it didn't get as many points. But The Boys is another one, obviously, that we both had on our list. This is a show for those of you who have been listening to us for a while. Back when we were on audio, we were doing episode recaps last summer for their fourth season. It's an Amazon series created by Eric Kripke based on a comic book. It just wrapped its fifth and final season in Toronto, and that will be coming out. I'm actually not sure entirely when.
Sometime next year.
Yeah, it's sometime in 2026. So its airing date is 2019, 2026. It stars Carl Urban, Jack Quaid, Anthony Starr, and a whole bunch of other people. And we talked about it a lot before, but we haven't talked about it much since we've been on YouTube as well. It is just one of the best superhero stories ever put on film because it takes a look at what would really happen in today's fucked up world if there were superheroes.
Yep.
And a lot of that involves the corporatist culture that would come in, people finding ways to monetize these superheroes, the superheroes themselves believing that they're above the law, and what that kind of causes them to do. And then the interactions of people that are left in the collateral damage of all these superhero fights and what their uh, perspective is on the heroes that everybody is meant to worship. It is not a show for everybody because it is incredibly crude at times and it just does not hold back on a lot of the just really kind of disgusting jokes and images, but it's funny, but it's also you really feel for the characters at the same time that you're in this kind of weird superhero world. Again, because it grounds itself in, I think, taking a look at the reality of how people would be if they actually lived in a world like this.
Yeah, 100%. You fucking nailed it right there. Yeah. It just goes all in
Yeah.
on because while they are superheroes, they still have all the flaws and instincts and desires that just regular humans have. So
Yeah.
it takes that to its logical conclusion rather than like an Avengers type movie where everybody bands together for the greater good of
Yeah.
humanity. It's like, no, fuck that. This is realistic. It's for the greater good of myself. So, and
And all the
yeah,
jealousies and the everything else that comes along with it, and who's more powerful and dominating others, and yeah, just everything's in this.
yeah, and well, again, it's not hasn't really been nominated for any big awards. It's so brilliantly done, and I think the over the top nature of it, as far as the violence and sex and all that goes, kind of turns off a lot of the critics, but it has a lot to say underneath
It
that, and
does.
I think that's what's missed by the like the prestigious award voters.
Yeah.
Okay, top five. Downton Abbey. Orig- Originally aired on the British channel ITV. It ran from 2010 to 2015, but there's been several movies, and there's another one coming out later this year. It's basically a soap opera, but very heightened with the production value, and it's that historical English flair that classes things up a bit for me, like folks like you and me to love it. It's not like General Hospital. It's a massive ensemble cast. It takes place between the sinking of the Titanic in 1912 through the end of the 1920s. It follows the story of the Crawley family, an aristocratic house that inhabits the titular Downton Abbey. And really the estate is the main character, which is
Yes.
true in a lot of kind of soap operas. It's created by Julian Fellows, who is currently doing the Gilded Age, the master of the upstairs downstairs drama. Because it's all about the interplay between the service class and the aristocracy, as well as the dwindling relevance of both.
Yeah, this is really the epitome of an upstairs downstairs the type series. And this is another one that I was kind of shocked to see how high it ended up on our list, but it's just because we both had it lower than this, but we both really enjoyed this series, and so the combined points made this a top five series, which is kind of surprising. But it is just really, really well written. The characters are great, and for nothing else, if you don't want to watch the show, watch it for Maggie Smith, who is just her Dowager Countess character. Again, one of the great characters. She's just so funny, so witty, doesn't give this octogenarian or whatever who just doesn't give a fuck and is just every scene with her is magic. I love it. Yeah. R.I.P. Maggie Smith, who died a
Hmm.
couple years ago, but she was just great in this. And it's not just her. There a lot of the other characters are great, but it's also another one of these series, kind of like Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, kind of like Peaky Blinders, that are set in a historical time period, but they're also about, and maybe this one more than any other, about how the changing times are affecting people who are used to certain traditions and certain forms of life. And that just makes it a very interesting series to people like us who are interested in history and current events, and the interplay between those things and the personal lives of the characters is just really, really well done.
Yeah, that's definitely the main through line through the entire series is that the lords and ladies are losing their style of life while the downstairs servants are finally figuring out that they can make their own way and
Yeah.
um you know, go forth and not just be servants for their entire life.
Yeah, but also for some of them, that's a difficult transition as well, right?
Exactly.
Because
Yeah,
for some
especially
of
for the
them,
older ones. Yeah.
they're kind of the jobs that they've been in their entire lives, or maybe their families have been in for their entire lives. Those kinds of jobs are disappearing as well. So where do they go as well? It's not just as simple or as black and white. That's another thing that's good about it. It's not just as black and white as, oh, the rich people are bad and the poor people are great. And isn't it
Yeah.
great that the poor people are having their, the rich people are getting their comeuppance and the poor people are having, it's not that at all. It's all these characters dealing with change.
Yeah. All right. Number four, Game of Thrones.
Dun, 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 dun.
And uh I was probably mistaken in assigning myself this one to to describe just because
I'll start a stopwatch.
yeah, for real, because goddamn, we spent so much time at the top of the Holiday Inn as we illustrated last week and just talking about different Game of Thrones theories and reading books and all that kind of shit. But as strictly as a series, if this was the first four seasons, I would have put this number one,
Mhm.
no problem. Uh, okay. Uh, okay. Okay. Based on
You got so
loosely
much to
based on
say.
yeah, loosely based on the War of the Roses, came up with by George R. R. Martin. He's written five novels about it, and there's dragons, and so the interplay is between warring houses trying to vie for the throne of Westeros. I guess, as simple as I could possibly make it. I mean, if you haven't seen a single episode of Game of Thrones, I don't know what to tell. But okay, so between season five and their final season, they kind of dropped the ball. There were some of the greatest episodes were in season six and seven, but
Mhm.
it seemed like the creators, David Benioff and DB Weiss, just didn't feel like doing the show anymore, and
They
that
really, yeah, it felt rushed and undercooked the last two seasons for sure.
and while I'm not one of those fans that hates everything about how it ended, I just feel
No,
like it wasn't earned.
exactly. Yeah.
So I won't spoil everything that happened, but it was such a fucking cultural phenomenon for the first 4 years.
Hmm.
Absolutely perfect, and I was so obsessed with it. I was like an evangelical priest, like on the mountain, telling everybody I knew, you have to watch this show. If you're not into Lord of the Rings, if you're not into fantasy, because there's so much political intrigue and family dynamics and everything. It was just such a fucking good show for those first 4 years.
It really was. And again, if you had told people before this show that the biggest show on television that everybody would be tuning in to watch week after week, we're talking older people, younger people, men, women, if you had told people before then, or any sort of TV exec or anybody like that, that this would be a fantasy series with dragons and knights, and they would have thought you were absolutely crazy. Like that kind of stuff just didn't really sell. I mean, the Lord of the Rings movies had done well, but that was a well-known series and IP. Most fantasy stuff was not seen as broadly as having broad appeal to the general public. But this show did, and it did it for a number of reasons. One of them was the incredible base work from the stories of George R. R. Martin, obviously. But in a way, this is almost kind of another upstairs downstairs thing because it is about the warring houses and the prince, who's going to take over the throne. But then there are so many of the characters that are just the common people and how these wars for the throne affect the common people as well and how they got swept up in everything. But then the other thing that made this show fantastic and we've talked about it a lot. Other people have talked about it. The people in the show have talked about it a lot. Is that the show was at its best, not when there were CGI dragons flying around, not when there were big battle sequences, not when you had people getting slaughtered at the Red Wedding or anything like that. The show was at its best when it was just two people in a room talking.
Yeah.
And the way that they did dialogue that was meaningful in the moment to the story, to those characters throughout so much of the series, again, up until kind of the last couple of seasons, was just incredible and what really made this show so good.
Yeah, and it won Emmys. Peter Dinklage was amazing. Started out with Sean Bean and Kit Harington, Sophie Turner, like Maisie Williams. Like, yeah, you go
Yeah,
down
the
the line.
cast, yeah.
Everybody was just fucking incredible. And especially casting kids,
Hmm.
Isaac Hempstead, right, as Bran, and all those kids. Like, you're gonna go like 10 years with all these guys, and
Yeah,
everybody just fucking nailed it, even if the writing fell off over the past couple of years.
yeah.
All right, stopwatch. Let's go.
Yes, yeah. So then we're in at number three, and this is one that I could probably go on forever, but I won't. This is The Wire. And The Wire is an HBO series created by David Simon. It ran for 5 seasons from 2002 to 2008, starred Dominic West, Lance Reddick, Wendell Pierce, Idris Elba, a whole bunch of other people, and introduced Idris Elba to the world.
Michael B.
This
Jordan.
was my number one on my list and has been my number one probably ever since I first saw it. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. I do think this is the greatest show ever made. Just the breadth of the storytelling, looking at all aspects of an issue, in this case, urban decay and what to do about inner city decline and just the decline of North American cities. Well, but it is applicable to many European industrial cities and everything as well. And the scourge of drugs and crime in those areas, and taking a look at that through so many different eyes, so many different lenses, and not just saying, oh, this is awful, here's this and this and this, and these guys are to blame, but looking at the problems of why it's so difficult to solve these
Yeah,
issues
yeah,
and all the different aspects of it, right? Like different seasons would almost focus in, as the same time as they're telling a bunch of other stories, focus in on different themes and aspects of the issue. One season you're looking at the issue of ports and the supply of drugs. One season focuses a bit more on the politics and the political situation. Another one focuses it on the education system. Another one on the media. It was just such an incredible story. And yet, it's damn funny at times. It's sad, it's frustrating, it's touching. And the characters. Man, oh man, the characters.
mm.
Like Bubbles, Bunk, Kima, Omar, McNulty, Stringer Bell. Like the characters just you can
Cocketty.
yeah. Carcetti, Tommy Carcetti. They're such incredibly well-developed characters and just evocative. You just say their names and you can see them. All that together just made this, in my mind, the greatest series ever made. And for us, number three, just an incredible series.
Yeah, surprisingly, I was born in Baltimore, and most of one half of my family still lives in the Baltimore area. But yeah, I was kind of a late comer to The Wire, surprisingly.
Okay.
And but yeah, once I got into it, I was into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Michael K. Williams as Omar was just one of the greatest characters of all time because he's
Yeah.
just so nuanced and the whistle and him being
Omar Strolin.
yeah yeah, it was such a great show. I'm actually kind of surprised they haven't tried to bring it back in some form or fashion because Okay, I am and I'm not because they did cover every avenue that they needed to cover, as you
Mhm.
just said, but also everything is just still so relevant. But I guess that's why they don't need to bring it back because
Yeah.
it's yeah, amazing, amazing series.
Yeah, I mean, okay, this will be the last thing I say about it. The way I described it, it almost could sound a bit like a clinical or academic analysis of a problem. And it was in a way, but yet it's still incredibly compelling storytelling. The stories
Mm.
were fantastic and the characters are great and dialogue and everything else.
All right, down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
Number two, we got Mad Men, and it's a period drama created by Matthew Weiner, who wrote just about every episode and directed quite a few. It was on AMC from 2007 to 2015, and brought us the iconic Don Draper. You had John Hamm, Elizabeth Moss, January Jones, Christina Hendricks, John Slattery. Just another just phenomenal cast, and it's all about advertising in Fifth Avenue through 1960 to 1970, and all the cultural turmoil that was going on, all like from everything from race relations to Vietnam, and the rise of um, anti-smoking campaigns and everything from the 1960 to 1970 was encapsulated in this one series, and it is one of the most tumultuous and interesting decades in American history, if not world history. So, yeah,
Absolutely. This show is great. It's it's a little more serious, like a lot of the other shows that we're talking about. They're dramas and they bring in a lot of humor. Not to say that there wasn't some humor in this series, but it was very serious a lot of the time, which is so funny now seeing John Hamm, who this show made him famous,
oh
and
yeah,
his character was such a serious, straight. I mean, not straight in terms of doing everything by the book. He certainly didn't, but just kind of a serious and straight character in this compared to what John Hamm just likes to do with his acting career these days. But it was, again, another one of these series of people dealing with changing times. And the character of Don Draper is just such an incredibly layered character
yeah,
that it just made this show great because it was like, peeling off the layers of an onion. Each episode or each season, you're discovering more things about this guy. And in a way, he's kind of examining for himself what is going to make a happy life for himself. And so he's
hmm
kind of discovering things about himself as well. And we're just along for that ride as everything else is going on around him that you already talked about, and the changing times and all these other characters and everything that they're doing. Just really interesting stuff.
yeah. You're 100% right. Like the journey that Don Draper's character goes through is like, yeah, we see him as this like incredibly clean cut, like good looking and very handsome guy that just gets whatever he wants at every turn, and then we start getting to his backstory, and he's actually a victim of a lot of abuse back in the day. So
Yeah.
yeah, uh
And yeah, gets everything he wants, but it's not clear that he knows what he wants.
for
Uh,
sure.
yeah. All right, which brings us to number one. And we're already running extremely long, so we should wrap this up quickly. Number one, obviously, you've probably been expecting it since we haven't mentioned it yet, and that's Breaking Bad. This was another AMC series, so AMC definitely was on a roll for a while there. Created by Vince Gilligan, it ran for 5 seasons, which seems to kind of be the perfect number for a good series. For From 2008 to 2013, starred Bryan Cranston, Aaron Paul, Anna Gunn, so many others. It is probably the most fully realized story out of any of these that we've talked about. Even if Gilligan didn't know exactly where he was going to go when he started it. The series comes together as if he knew exactly what he was doing at all times.
Yeah.
Um, like famously, Aaron Paul's character was going to die before the end of the first season, but that obviously didn't happen because the interplay between him and Cranston's character was just great between Jesse and Heisenberg himself. So the way that this series was kind of an examination of Cranston's character, and obviously Cranston played it. Just, I mean, I've talked about how much I think Cranston's incredible before, but it was this show is also just maybe this and Mad Men are also just incredible character studies. So we
Oh yeah.
talked about the Don Draper character for Mad Men. This is a character study for the character of Walter White and what he's going through. And at first, you're kind of cheering for him, and then he clearly becomes the villain of the story. But the more you learn, the more it's about this deep-seated insecurity and this need to prove himself and
Yeah.
this need to show his intellectual superiority and always be right. And this just keeps pushing him into these situations that he mostly manages to get out of or push through, but it's just destroying him and his family at the same time. It's just an incredible series.
Yeah, and the way he sums it up when during his last confrontation with Skylar really embodies the entire series. And I don't want to get just say everything because I know.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you haven't watched Breaking Bad through, like, what are you doing here? Anyway, but yeah,
Yeah.
but like Don Draper and Walter White are like two sides of the same coin, in that they're just phenomenal anti-heroes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and the
And
21st century in terms of TV series is really the golden age of the anti-hero.
yeah, and that wouldn't be possible in just like a 2 hour movie. Like there are examples of that in the past, but to have the kind of arcs that these guys have over 5, 6, 7 years is just
And you,
is
you need the nuance and the depth that you can
of
get
course.
into through many, many hours of watching these guys.
Yeah, with the family relationships and
Yeah.
the the causation and the motivations and all that shit. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Very, yeah. What can you say about Breaking Bad? And of course, Ozymandias is one of the greatest single episodes of TV of all time.
Yeah.
All right, as Martin said, we are running super long, and so yeah, grand finale, boo boo boo, yeah, Breaking Bad wins, yeah. But we also had a lot of bubble shows, and I guess just want to alternate going down the road. You
Yeah.
want to start out?
Yeah. So I had Atlanta on my list, and so it got some points.
Yeah, I had Bored to Death, a very little known HBO comedy with Jason Schwartzman and Ted Danson.
Yeah, Vikings was on your list. I enjoyed Vikings, but I didn't have it on my list. But just a great, again, historical series.
And we have Fargo, obviously spawned from the 1994 movie, and yeah, very good like series of miniseries.
Yes, yeah, kind of an anthology, but each season is a different kind of story. An Idiot Abroad. This was one that you had on your list. I'm actually not at all familiar with this show.
Okay,
Oh,
it was produced by Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant, and
oh, okay.
their little crony that they always have on their show, Carl Pilkington. They send off into Egypt and various other parts of the world, and he's like a Middle Englander who's never left his um home, basically his home area. So they just like toss him out there, and he's like, yeah, it's an hilarious kind of like parody of Anthony Bourdain goes places and stuff like that. So
Okay. I'll jump on the next one because then it seems like we alternate with ones that you had and I had.
okay,
So Arrested Development we had next, which was a comedy, not at all your traditional network comedy, and then actually it kind of got canceled on network and then picked up again. Didn't quite recapture the magic that it had, but just one of the more unique comedies created.
Yeah, and I just want to say it's probably the most cleverly written comedy
Yeah.
I've ever seen in my life, and I'm still punching myself for not including it on this list because uh, you have to watch every single episode, which is probably why it got canceled multiple times because every single joke is layered and every single line is funny in itself, but then means something else. It's so fucking well written.
Yeah.
Okay, then Rick and Morty, great comedy series, animated sitcom, sci-fi rigmarole, and really deep at times.
Yeah, Parks and Recreation, which was an Amy Poehler led show, similar in style in a way to 30 Rock. I just think 30 Rock was a better show, but Parks and Recreation definitely has a lot of fans.
Then we have The Office, the UK version. We already discussed that. No need to go any further.
Yeah. Black Sails, pirate drama, which was actually on both of our lists, but near the very end of both of our lists. Just a really fun, actually well-made show.
Yeah, it was interesting that we both had this on our list, but it was the only one not to make the actual list because we had it so
Yeah.
low. But
Yeah.
yeah, very, very well done. It has Blackbeard, Long John Silver, all the all stars.
Yeah, but what it did is it did a great job of mixing real historical characters with their own fictional characters and blending them together in the same stories. Did a really good job of that.
Yep.
Friday Night Lights was one I had lower down on my list, but I really enjoyed this series. It had its ups and downs, but at heart, when it was really good, it was very good with music by Explosions in the Sky. Just a really interesting series.
Then we have Entourage, which obviously could never get made today, but it was a very fun series that came out around 2003, 2004 about based on Mark Wahlberg's rise to fame
Yeah.
and just a fun series. Jerry Piven was fucking awesome, and that is Ari Gold.
And then we've got Rome, which was an HBO historical, HBO BB / BBC historical series that basically chronicles, again, another one that mixes fictional characters with real historical characters and kind of goes through the ending of the old Roman Republic and the beginning of the Roman Empire with the rise of Augustus Caesar.
Yeah, and this got canceled, and because it was supposed to go all the way up through the birth of Jesus and his rise to power, but the only reason I didn't include that in Rome in my list is because um HBO did what they could with the budget they had
Yes.
available, but they never showed any like big battles or anything. It was all
Yep.
just character interplay, which was really good, but it just doesn't hold up for today's standards of HBO.
No, it's actually this was much earlier, but it's kind of reminiscent a bit of season one of Game of Thrones, where they
Mhm.
clearly weren't working with the kind of budgets that HBO series get these days. And so, yeah, they'd kind of yada yada all the battles and things because they just didn't have the budgets for it.
And just quickly, anecdotally, a lot of the budget after Rome got canceled wound up going to Game of Thrones. So that's another reason why I didn't include Rome on my
Oh,
list because
interesting.
it wouldn't have
Okay.
Game of Thrones. So, and then, okay, lastly, we have Eastbound and Down, the Danny McBride vehicle, where he's a washed up baseball player. He's just fucking hilarious. And has Will Ferrell and Craig Robinson, and just very, very funny for I think 4 seasons that one ran. All right, yeah, we are running super long.
Yeah, way long.
I
We're coming up
apologize,
on two
but
hours.
yeah, I apologize, but I hope this is entertaining. We had a shit ton to get through, and hope we didn't waste your time. And we'll just sign off right now. I'm Zach Miller. That's Martin Cook. We'll see you next week on the Unsolicited Film Reviews podcast.
Yeah, send us comments, your hate, your love, like and subscribe, all that. Bye, everyone.